It's time to talk about Arsenal yet again. Now, I've done a few of these videos throughout the year where I honestly just talk about my opinions about the club and where we're going and kind of where I think that we should be happy or not happy with certain players and obviously the manager. Now, ultimately, this video is going to be titled Who Do We Blame? Because the season hasn't gone exactly how I wanted or anyone else really wanted for that matter, and not really how we expected. I really thought this was the year we were going to be Premier League champions, and I felt like we had to be considering how good we were the couple of years before, and I felt like Man City were always going to drop off. Now, unfortunately, Liverpool have been really good, and I don't think we are at that level, and I don't necessarily that's on us completely. Liverpool have been fabulous this season, way better than they have looked the last couple of years, and Mohamed Salah is literally on Ballon d'Or contending. That guy every single week is incredible. So sometimes I believe and have an outlook on life where there's something you can't do because people are doing it better than you, and I do think that can be put into this situation here. However, that doesn't mean we should just be satisfied with that anyway. I do think ultimately Arsenal have let us all down. I think you can look at the transfers, you can look at how we've played in some of the games, and you can look at some players as well that have really not been that great this season in many different ways. Now, first of all, a lot of people are blaming Arteta. I don't know if this is sort of the consensus around Arsenal in real life, but on the internet, obviously a lot of people are going to say Arteta out and all this kind of annoying stuff at this point. Now, I understand if you think Arteta should be out and it's his fault, that is an absolutely fair enough opinion to have. However, I just do not think there is much solutions, and I don't think it's his fault entirely. The whole situation Arsenal are in throughout the season has been a fault of many people, not just Arteta. It's the players, it's the board, it's every single person involved that have definitely contributed to this factor. The inability of us to actually sign anyone in the summer when we should have kicked on is definitely something we can look in hindsight. However, at the time, can you really blame the board for thinking that we could win the league with the team that we had when we were 2 points off the title last year and Man City decreased and we didn't think they were going to have that great of a season? Then I can't really blame them. I think it's very hindsighty to say that. Now, should they have factored in the point of us potentially getting injuries that we haven't in the last year or so? Yes, I do think even before the season I said this, that we can't keep relying on people like Saka to create magic. If he gets injured, we are screwed, and we have to put things in place to actually help us in that way, and which we didn't. Now, is that fundamentally Arteta's fault? In my opinion, no. We have a complete recruitment team nowadays. When Arteta was in charge at Arsenal, my biggest complaint was that he basically had complete control of the club because of the financial privilege that he gave us. He made us money more than any other manager. We kept getting into the top four, and everyone was kind of happy with that. David Dean was happy, the Cronkies were happy, because ultimately that was his job. He didn't really have time to look at scouts and look who was good, and kind of just bought anyone that he kind of came to our mind. There was not many signings that we made that really surprised me in quite a long time, and then we panicked buy on the transfer deadline day. Now, that still happens now, you could say, but I remember that 92 million bid for Thomas Lemar. Like, what were we doing that entire summer? It was just an absolute mess. So I do think Arsenal's recruitment does deserve some praise because we have come from where we are to now, and I think majority of our signings are actually good, and I don't really think that most Arsenal fans have an issue with the signings we've made. It's just the signings we haven't made which is the real issue. I think because of that, people are sort of directing their frustration to Mourinho and to Calafiori, but realistically I think they're fine players. Mourinho's a £30 million midfielder. That is how much they cost nowadays for that sort of player, who is okay. He does a job sometimes, good squad player when we can play Rice into that 6 role. You know, we sold Florian Balogun for £30 million, and that guy is useless and can't even play for Monaco and is now injured. So I think there needs to be some sort of realisation around the money spent nowadays, and that is realistically not a lot on a player. That is a squad player price nowadays. Now, for Calafiori, I still think he has a lot of promise there. He's the one person in that team that gets a lot of freedom, and I think that going forward he's still got a lot to offer and can show us a lot. I think obviously he can improve, but he's so young and he is one of the generational talents out there. I don't really have an issue with him being in the squad, and we definitely needed to sign a left back, so I don't really know why people don't think that. But we have a whole team of recruitment now. We have Tim Lewis, we have Richard Garlick, we have Jason Ayton, who was Edu Gasper, who randomly left in November, and now we've got Mikel Arteta as well. There's a whole team at play here, and they've not done enough to really help us, but it's also down to the board. It's quite known that if Arsenal don't get the money that they're owned by the board, then we can't spend the money that we want. want. It's the same with the director of football. There's reports about us getting a director of football in, but that won't happen until the board allow us to actually sign that off. They have to agree with it first and go with it. And the Kroenkes, even though they've got little involvement around the club nowadays, they still really dictate these sort of things, which does put us in restraints a lot of the time. Now, do I think Arteta has done the best job in the world? No, I do not. I even think if you look at the Nottingham Forest game, tactically we played a little bit better. I loved how Calafiori was used. I loved how Rice was used a little bit more, and we were a lot wider, which actually did help us attack a little bit. We still didn't create that many chances, but look at the attack. I don't really blame them that much. This has been that one year where Arteta hasn't really been able to find many great solutions. Last year we had Partey injured, Timber injured. He found ways to make it work very successfully. Now, we aren't working at a complete crutch this year compared to them years. The attacking line is kind of screwed, but even like Mourinho's usage up front, I think has been poor. He should be that backboard player, the player that passes it off to other players who run in behind. And maybe this is a profile issue, maybe this isn't just down to Arteta, but when you watch people like Liverpool, they have an understanding of everyone in that team should run in behind at certain moments and everyone should come close at certain moments. You have to be willing and able to do both of them. Now, we just do not have that. Odegaard pretty much never makes that run. You got even Waneri now coming short for it, and he makes the run sometimes in behind, but he's still experienced at it. Trossard doesn't really do it that much because he ain't got that pace, but he can do it occasionally. And obviously Mourinho is now being used as that striker that's supposed to run in behind, which is stupid. He should be running a lot closer with players off him, but we just do not have that, and we rely on Rice to do it a lot of the time, which is just not the solution. Now, I think when you look at them sort of things, Arteta has kind of dug us into a little bit of a grave. But I do think when the tactical level of Arsenal is so high, and I think that for so long he has found solutions from problems that keep occurring, I don't really blame him too much. The only reason why these problems are a problem is because of how high and how intelligent we have been as a team for such a long time. And now without our main players, I do think it's very hard to replicate that. Now, I think my main issue is on the squad building more than the tactics. I don't love everything he's done tactically, and I don't think he's been brilliant this season. However, I don't think that's really his fault given the situation. I think the main problem is the fact that Saka is out of the team, even Havertz is out of the team, and I think without them two, the whole structure of that forward line completely cracked. We have no players that really come in and offer the same thing or even anything like it, and we kind of just have no idea. And I do think when you look at things like Arsenal attacking so much on the wide stretches and not the centre of the park, makes us very predictable. I get why Arteta likes it, but he needs to be more open to allowing people to attack centrally and having more players run off it as well. And one of the ways you make this happen is for freedom. I've seen a lot of people say this, and I completely agree. Arsenal need more freedom throughout their midfield and their team on their players. Everyone is too structurally sound where they stay in the same zones, they stay doing the same things, where not only it makes us very predictable and we never really change things up, but when we do actually move into different channels, we've said it with Odegaard on that left channel, it often creates different things. But I think these players need to be more free. Now, maybe with the Zubimendi coming in the summer, that will shore up, and maybe a double pivot of Rice and Zubimendi will allow Odegaard to be more free, or Waneri in that role, which I don't mind. But I just feel like that's not the case. I feel like he's still going to play Rice in that left centre mid spot and make him do them runs, which is great in games against top 6 sides that want to have the ball as well. But against teams that are going to sit deep, it's just not the answer anymore. And Arteta does have a lot to explain in that way. And what I will say is that even though I have these complaints about Arteta, it's like I said, we're playing at an incredible level tactically where we are very specific, and there is no way any other manager should be in charge. You know, stupid people on Twitter will come out and say, well, this guy should be in charge, this guy be in charge. I can fundamentally say that no one will be able to manage this club right now, given the situation we're in anywhere better. You've seen other teams get injuries and they have fell to like 15th in the league. We are not that bad. We are still one of the best teams in the country, even playing at a complete crunch with our 4 best attackers out. And I've seen people say Areola for Bournemouth, which is just crazy. I think people need to do a lot more research on some of the managers that they're suggested, rather than just looking at results on the table, because there's a lot other play styles and systemal things that matter when you pick a manager rather than just a guy being there. And Arteta does represent the club very well, but is he the best person for this project? Personally, how I look at it is that managing wise, he is amazing, and I think that he will continue to improve, and I think he will learn a lot from this season overall. As a squad building perspective and maybe a signing perspective, especially in them forward areas, is he amazing? No. Risk adverse, our whole club is, he is as well, and I think we are too conservative sometimes, which is an Arteta thing as well. But that's where you need help. You know, if we get a new manager and that's not going going to make a difference, really. Not many managers are incredible at signing talents all the time. Their job is to manage the team. That's where you need the help of a director of football, a sporting director, a technical director. These people are supposed to be the people that help Arteta make what he wants onto the pitch so concrete. And when I look at other clubs, I look at people like Aston Villa, who make some weird transfer decisions in the summer and in January. Ultimately, most of the criticism goes to Mochi, the actual director of football for that team, because that makes sense. He does all the stuff. And I get that Arsenal don't really have that right now. We don't have Edu, we have Jason Ayton, his intern. Arteta is not the guy that's making the signings. He says some people that he wants, and there's definitely players we've bought because he wants them, such as Marino. There's also players he doesn't want. He didn't want Neto, he didn't want Sterling. He didn't want these players, and he's been forced to have them because our club couldn't provide him with the players that he actually wanted, which I do think is a major point. Now, what I will say about all of this is that I do think that most of the blame goes on the board, and I think that if they want to make more money, because we've actually had good money this year, we've only lost around 17 mil, we need to buy better, because if not, we will begin to slip even more. If we want to go further in the Champions League, we need to buy players. So this summer is going to be a big expectation on that. For me, Arteta is the right man for the club. I know all the stuff he's done in the club as well that helps, but I do think if you look in a year's time, if we are still in this situation and some of the problems such as physical mid-blocks have not been sorted out or even really had much difference on where we are now, then I do think you have to consider, is Arteta that man? Because that is a massive crutch that's holding us back. But ultimately, there's way more problems than Arteta at this club right now, and he is doing the best of what he can get. And for me, not necessarily sure about the board right now because they have invested before, but I want to see their intent this summer. If we do not spend a huge amount of money this summer and completely reinvent that squad into good ways, then I am concerned about not only the board, about Arteta and everyone. I will give him this summer because I do think the January window is hard to really make a decision. Like, people are saying there is players better than the ones that we have, and I agree with that. But I think financially, if you want to sign a Watkins now, well, that means we can't get Seshko in the summer. That means we can't get the Isaacs. And who would you want in the long term? This league season was basically over anyway into January, and I think the board probably would have thought that. And realistically, the season is kind of over now, so we need to really focus in the summer and getting this director of football in and then sorting the club out. And that is the main thing that happens. Now, let me know in the comments what you guys think. I know it's a bit all over the place. I know some people are going to also think that most of the blame's on Arteta, and that is fair. You're allowed to think that. I personally do not agree, but I am always willing to listen to other people because that is important. But let me know in the comments what you guys think overall. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.